radical moment. Spencer, what is up, dude?
How's it going?
Man, beautiful, beautiful. How's everything going for you today? Everything good?
Yeah, just same old, same old.
Dude, thank you so much for taking the time. Jeremy and I have been psyched, having phone calls today, writing these interviews. I'm sure Jeremy can embellish a little more too, trying to, somebody with your stature and all of the things that you have going on, it's like, how do we fucking break this down so it's not 4 hours long? I think we got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, absolutely radical, dude. We appreciate the time. Kind of just digging into some earlier things with your story and music, and just kind of moving on. From there as far as Full of Hell, Sword Dream, Reaper's Gong. Reaper's Gong is something that was a little bit newer, introduced to me as well. You guys still ripping some gigs with that, or what's going on with that?
It's just we try. I mean, now that Gabe plays Full of Hell, it's kind of hard to just like get stuff going, just because it's like two of us are so busy, and then Joey, our singer, and our drummer have like multiple full-time jobs. So, just like, and I mean too, it's kind of like, I mean, I've been doing music for so long, and it used to be like so much easier with like MySpace and all of stuff like that. Now that stuff's gone, it's actually become way more difficult to like start a DIY band. There's just like not a network like there used to be.
Yeah, I can see, I guess, like within like Bandcamp and things like that. But you mentioned like MySpace and shit too, and that was that something that was like pretty relevant as far as discovering stuff earlier on?
I mean, discovering stuff like, discovering music, but also too, like, I mean, that was my tool for getting Full of Hell tours. Like, me and Dylan would book like whole US tours just using MySpace.
Which is crazy.
That makes sense though, because like when at first I was like, well, we have social media, but now that I think about it, but that like merge, like you could be a band and have your full like functioning band profile right there with like everyone else's personal profiles, and then you could just network through that way. Yeah, I can see what you're saying about MySpace having like just the way it all kind of came together. You could much more easily interact with like, hey, like I'm seeing a band that I haven't seen. I can see all their stuff right here. Let me hit them up real quick and message them right inside here. I don't have to use this social media or that social media. It's just all MySpace.
It was just so much like once it switched over to Facebook, there was like less of a personal connection to people, or just like being able to message other bands or promotional pages or venues. Like it's become way harder to like start a new band, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeremy, what do you think? Let's kind of dig into some of the background here, and let's start out here. As far as the early development in music, if you will.
So I lived in DC for a little while, and so I got familiar with the Eastern Shore, and knowing that you guys were from out there, Ocean City to be specific, right? Like it's like, and I always kind of thought that was wild, because just as someone who's not from DC and then driving out to the beach or whatever, driving out to Ocean City, it always seemed kind of like, how in the hell are you going to find enough weirdos out here to like play some sick stuff and like grow a scene, So for me, I'm just more curious of like where, like early on, like how you're getting started. You have such a range in musical taste and influences. I mean, it's no surprise to anybody, right? So that comes somewhere. So, how in the hell, do you discover all these bands? Do you get into music? Do you find your guys in Full of Hell? Like where does that come from?
So like when I was growing up in like high school, there was actually a bunch of underground music stores, because Ocean City was like so much rooted in like surf culture and skateboard culture. So it kind of like bled over a little bit. Like, even though we're a tourist town, in like summertime, I think there's like 500,000 people come to visit, but in the wintertime, there's only like 3,000 people that live here year round. So it's like very small and tight knit. But there was like just like a couple underground music stores that was like, I was able to like in high school, like just find CDs from like Carcass and Cattle Decapitation and just stuff like that. Like stuff on my own. Like there was like a couple older kids that were into like crust and power violence that showed me like the stuff that would later on influence me. But I mean, I think every kid around my age demographic too got into music initially because of like metalcore and stuff like that, what was popular. So there was a couple like metalcore bands around here, and those were like my first shows I went to. Like at my parents' house, I still have flyers from like the church hall by me that was like Death by Stereo was supposed to play here and Fallout Boy was supposed to play here, like when they were still DIY band. Like, and two, like even like the surf culture bled through. It was like I remember going to one like metalcore show when I was like, I think like 12 or 13 or something, and it was just a bunch of local metalcore bands, and then the legendary reggae band Burning Spear was the headliner, which just like
Oh, shit.
yeah, and it was just like at a VFW hall, and it was, you know, but so it's like there's like you kind of just had to like discover stuff on your own kind of thing. It was like there was, like I said, a couple record stores and a couple bands, but like there's not really a tight knit scene around here. Like, you know, it's a kind of thing where it's just like you played music with whoever played music kind of thing and just showed each other being like, well, I kind of want to do a band like this and I kind of want to do a band like this. And it's like it didn't really like work out most of the time, but like was starting Full of Hell, I was in like a couple other hardcore bands and like those fell apart, and we kind of just ended up jamming, like being like, all right, let's try to start like another band, like kind of like influenced by like Entombed and Crowbar and like I Hate God. And the way I met Dave was someone had mentioned him when he was like, I was 19 and he was like 14, and they're like, he's pretty good at drums. So I just found his MySpace and was like, hey, do you want to go on tour? Like I figured I like have a tour, like a 3-week tour booked of the East Coast on these like
Oh my God.
5 demo songs we have. And he was like, I've never been in a band before. And I was like, that's fine. I'll just, and I just sent him a list of like probably like over 100 like grindcore death metal power violence releases. And I was like, get learning. And then, so it's like, I mean, the very first drummer on the very first Full of Hell demo, I mean, it's a completely different lineup except for me. But there was like this Christian metalcore band on Solid State. The drummer lived around here called like, I forget, Oh Sleeper or something. He was the drummer on the very first Full of Hell demo. But
oh, really?
yeah. But
Deep cuts here. Deep cuts here.
But
yeah, weird.
I was like, he didn't go on tour with us. It was just kind of a situation being like, hey, we got these songs written. You want to like come to the studio and play drums for it? And we kind of just like paid him to do session work, and then it's been like Dave ever since.
Damn.
So
no shit. That's crazy. I remember that band too. I mean, like, I don't know if I ever saw them play shows or anything, but I remember that Oh Sleeper. It had the comma behind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's like around
those times.
The one kid I went to school with who recorded the first couple Full of Hell, like 7 stuff, like he went on to be like a big time producer for like Periphery and stuff like that. So it's like,
oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just like there's not a lot of people here, but it's like the couple people here, even though it's like the music's different, it's all intertwined somehow.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So when, with that said, like when you're starting bands, I mean, I guess maybe you've already answered the question. Like maybe out of necessity, you were like, if we're gonna have to drive 2-3 hours away to play some shows anyways, we might as well do a run. But like, so is that? I mean, like if you're thinking about, man, we're gonna play some shows. Where are we gonna play our first shows, guys? Like, where are you thinking? Like, I know you're by Baltimore, you're by Philly, you're by DC. Like, so, but what are you thinking?
It was, I mean, but that's the thing too, was like we were such a small band, and being from the Eastern Shore, it was kind of hard to get shows in the big cities. So we would like started out playing like smaller areas like Virginia Beach or like a weird town in like North Carolina or like somewhere in central Pennsylvania. It was like we didn't really hit the big major cities until like we had actually like established ourselves a little bit. So like it was, and I mean, Full of Hell's been a band as of this, like I think as of last week, a band for 15 years, and we have only played 10 local shows ever.
Oh my God, no shit.
So
yeah, it's kind of a situation where it's just like there was not a lot of places to play. Like I used to book like local hardcore, like not even hardcore shows, just like whatever bands would play. I used to book shows around here, and then the guy that took it over from me has actually ended up, he's the producer for Jelly Roll now. Yeah,
what?
He's like right here too. Like he's recorded vocals for some like Full of Hell stuff before, but he like ended up getting some like bigger metalcore bands and stuff to play. But it was just like, I mean, mainly around here, it's like very hit or miss. We're such a small town that like house shows are hard to have because it's like the cops would come instantly. There's like a couple of VFW halls in like churches and stuff, but like those had to like all shut down. So it's like at this point we can maybe play like a local bar once in a while, but it's like kind of thing now. It's we're like, I don't like, we have members that live all over, so it's still hard for us to like actually get together to play local shows kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, I think the last time we played here locally was 2 years ago, and that was like, yeah, that was probably like our 9th or 10th time ever playing locally.
that's wild. So really what I took away from that story is we should be playing games called 6 Degrees of Full of Hell.
Yeah.
And just find all these big names like, hey, did you know Jelly Roll is connected to Full of Hell?
Yeah.
Full of Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
I think I see a thing, that collaboration, Full of Jelly Roll.
Don't do that to him. That's not a split I want to see. You never know though, shit. I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of one of the things that I've grown to love, within a Full of Hell, obviously, is like the vast variety of, like different subgenres that you guys dig into, but then also like different times where you kind of have classics that of people that you are meshing with, but then also like recently with, the split up with Nothing. I mean, like there's just, it kind of seems like it's like almost, seeing a boundary or somebody saying like, you shouldn't play with Jelly Roll. And the next thing you know, it's like a whole fucking thing written. You're like, whoa, like this is like great.
I mean, like compared to like America as well, like, I mean, some of the festivals we've done in Europe, it's like, there's like, they are way more open to having like way diverse lineups. So it's like we played one day and it was like, we were playing like the small stage, but at the same time, like across the field, you could hear like the Lumineers playing, but then Pig Destroyer was playing right after, and then Ice Cube was playing.
Well, to your point too, I mean, like, and maybe that makes a lot of sense now. Thinking about like those MySpace days, it just feels like even here in America, then like shows would be much more mixed lineups and mixed bills. It wasn't always like, this is the death metal show, this is the hardcore show. And I feel like that's maybe like the younger generation's getting that too. Like it doesn't have to be so sterile or like every band sounds exactly the same, because believe it or not, it's kind of badass when a band's like different. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
And I feel like for a while there, it was like you said, it's getting back to that now where it's like more mixed, but it was a while where it was like every band sounded the same. But that was like, we always, even from the start of Full of Hell, we were like, we need to play with like as many different bands as possible. I mean, that's why like even when we did the split with Code Orange Kids, we had it on Top Shelf Records, because we were always playing shows with like bands with like The World Is a Beautiful Place and like bands of those ilk. And it was just like, I think it's like helped us in the long run, because we like can mold our sound or like figure out a set to play to different types of people, or play to people that may have never heard something that we're doing or influenced by.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
When
makes sense.
I mean, digging back a little bit, I guess, kind of rewinding a little, when you're initially, kind of getting into guitar, I heard in an interview that you're mentioning, there wasn't an interest right away, and you kind of had to come back around to it. And, what was that fire under your ass where, you ended up getting back to, having guitar in your life, and, what was that kind of resurgence in having the interest?
I think like, so it's like, I think my parents got me a guitar when I was like in like, I think 7th or 8th grade. And it was just like one of those things. It's like, even throughout like high school and stuff, it was just like I would try to play with people, but it was just like the growing pains of being a musician, where I was just like I wasn't good enough to play with type like everybody, and it was just like feeling discouraged. But it's like once I hit like 17, I was like, all right, I'm gonna start like writing my own music. Like I don't really know how to play anybody else's song like all the way through. I've always just been like, all right, I'm just going to write songs. That's the way I've always been. So it's ever since I was like, yeah, like 16 or 17, I would say, was like, all right, I'm going to start playing guitar more serious. But like, I want to just like come up with my own stuff. Like, it's not very fun to learn other people's music. I'd rather just write my riffs.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, that's sick. I think me coming into, I guess myself, I play drums, and Jeremy's a guitarist as well. I think it was kind of like a draw initially, was trying to figure out what other people were playing to, but there's kind of there's a little bit more of a cockiness into going into something and being like, you know what, man, like I'm not gonna learn other people's shit. I'm just gonna figure out how the fuck to play this.
Yeah,
like in the best way.
It's like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, right, I maybe have learned, like when I first started playing guitar, like learning a couple Metallica riffs or a couple Slayer riffs, and I took guitar lessons for like a little bit, but like I never like stuck with it. So it's like my music theory, if you can call it that, is very minimal. So it's been helpful in the sense it's like, all right, I've like stagnated on learning stuff on guitar, but now I have to be more creative in what I do. So it's like, it's like, I wish I knew more scales and like how to do like arpeggios and sweeps and shit like that, but it's just like, I never got it. So it's always just been being like, all right, I'm going to take these limitations and try to come up with like maybe a chord that wouldn't usually be in like a hardcore or punk band, or like a type of scale that wouldn't usually be used, kind of thing. Or even if I'm playing a scale that's not even a real thing, like, so like it's like forced me to be more creative.
Yeah, I can see that, because I honestly, I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat. Like my music theory, if you can call it that, is I wouldn't be able to tell you like, oh, I'm playing this chord right now and this is the scale I'm playing over. It is just more like you experiment and you find out like what you think sounds sick and what doesn't, and then you're just, sometimes you find magic, right? And you're like, that sounds awesome, but I don't know what it is, but it sounds good and I like it, so we'll go with it. So no, I definitely get what you're saying. Like I've struggled with like knowing songs, right? Like I've never really learned other people's songs. It's just about writing and creating yourself. So for sure. But it's interesting because when I listen to Full of Hell, I mean, the range of techniques that you guys employ. So like, it's interesting that you haven't spent a lot of time learning other people's songs, because I do feel like you have such a range of techniques. So, I mean, do you have any, like, is that something that you maybe just focused on yourself? Like, where's some of that coming from?
I think it's just more of along the lines of just like, always, like ever since Full House started, the way I've like looked at how to write songs and come up with ideas is being like, all right, let's say I wanted to write a grindcore or fast song, but what if like a band like Sonic Youth were to write a grindcore song? What if a band like Dystopia was to write a more like heavy, not heavy, but like faster song? Like, so it's like, what if this sludge band wrote a fast song? So it's like, that's how I looked at it, to being like, what if this band I like was influenced by this other band I like? How would they write this song?
Gotcha. And so almost from like listening to it, you get an idea in your head, and then you're like, well, how am I going to play this? Like, and then so that's maybe where the technique comes from, is what you're saying. Is like you get that idea, and then you go to play it, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to strum it like this to play it as fast as I need to play it, or I've got to really just out of necessity, and like you said, like overcoming maybe whatever barrier you may find yourself in.
Yeah. So it's just like, just trying to take my influences, but trying to put myself in their mindset of being like, how would they write this song?
Gotcha. Awesome.
Do you find yourself, you and, whether it's yourself and Dave and Dylan, or, just the boys getting together, if you will, do you find yourself recording like videos? Because you kind of mentioned weird hand structures or chord progressions or different things. Or is it just something that, like, are you the type of cat that you play it and you're like, no, I've got it?
So what we'll do is like, I'll come up with the riffs at home. Like I've always just like come up with the riffs, because it's like me and Dave live like right down the street from each other. Like Sam grew up right around the corner from my parents, but like he's been in the band for like, I think 6 or 7 years now. So it's always just been me and Dave jamming together kind of thing. Cause Dylan lives like 6 hours away from us. So he's like, he can only come like if we're writing a new record or about to go on tour, he'll come down to practice. So it's mainly I'll come up with the riff at home or the song, record it as a video, send it to the group chat being like, what do you guys think of this? So it's also too, it's like, I know exactly what I'm playing, and compared to like just say like a demo in like GarageBand or something, I can see what I'm playing, and then I send it to them, see if they like it, and then me and Dave will get together, and then I'll still set up the camera again and film us playing it together. So it's like it's easy. So then that way we can both see what we're playing, and if we want to tweak anything or forget anything, because it's kind of like I'll start playing a riff and then start kind of like improvising the rest of the song on the video before I'm even finished writing it, and then I'll send it to those guys and see what they think.
Okay. Maybe that's what I should have kind of alluded to a little bit more, was because you had mentioned, writing the riffs and having, certain parts at home, but that whole like structure when everything is coming together, and like you were just mentioning, where it's like you have like a recording of it and you're kind of fucking around and getting, so yeah, thank God for video technology, huh?
I like tried to do like voice memos or like GarageBand recordings, but it's like it still is like I'll be like, I forget what like what structure of the notes go in order, how I'm like fretting the chords, like what scale I did. Like sometimes it's hard to like get that from just a recording and not actually seeing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've learned that lesson the hard way. I've forgotten too many riffs. I've got to film it. I got to record it, and then it's there, because otherwise I will forget that son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of on the topic with Full of Hell, and kind of continuing on with that, like for as long as you guys have been in a band now, damn, 15 years, you're mentioning you're around 19 years old. What today stands out about that first practice, you guys getting together, and this was even pre-Dylan, right? This is like the original lineup and everything. What still stands out to you? Was there some maybe hot pockets that mom brought around, or you guys went out for some pizza afterward? What do we have going on?
It was just like, I just remember the very first practice we ever had, we had a second guitar player, and he quit after one practice, but we had written 2 songs like immediately at that practice. But I'm still friends with the other guitar player. He plays in this band called Damnation's Domain now. Like with
okay.
Yeah, so he was just like, I just like wasn't feeling it kind of thing, because the early demo stuff is like, we were like kind of was more of being like, all right, I want to do something kind of like more noisy, or like, stuff like Cursed or I Hate God and stuff like that. But everyone else was still very much being like hardcore minded. So it kind of was just like compromising on both ends. But I just remember that first practice, it was like, just like, I think 3 of us jamming, and then he quit, and then we were just like, all right, fuck it, let's just keep going on as a 4-piece, I guess. So.
And that, I mean, that went on for years, right? Obviously, like, is it Gabe that just joined?
Yeah, Gabe just joined. Gabe, I
Yeah.
think he is like, I know Gabe because his dad used to own a skate shop on the boardwalk, and that's like one of the Full of Hell played. But he grew up like around the corner from where I grew up. He's like 6 or 7 years younger than me, and I've just known him from just seeing him around town, kind of thing. But yeah, going back, it's like nothing really sticks out about like the early practices and stuff. Like, I mean, we only lasted for that very first lineup, I think, about 6 months. And then I had known Dylan just from like playing in other bands and like seeing him around. And Full of Hell ended up touring with a band that he was playing guitar with. And our singer quit after that tour. And we hit up Dylan being like, hey, do you want to sing in this band? He's like, well, I live 6 hours away, but I think I can make it work. And it's just, I've been in the band 6 months. But yeah, we've gone through like, the only time Dave hasn't really played with us was because he was like in high school. So we had to get a couple fill-ins for like 3 tours. But like, he has been like always writing the music with me. Like, it's never been like writing besides the very first demo. It's always just been like me or him. And then eventually he was just like, I'm not going to drop out of high school, but he was also too like, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to play music. And that's, we faked him a contract to get him to go to Europe for a month when he was like 17 years old. So me, like Dylan and I wrote like a fake contract and sent it to the Board of Education and got him out of school for a month to tour.
Holy shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn. And look at you guys now, you know, I mean, like, thank God all these things, and sometimes those early sacrifices can be scary, but
yeah,
damn, that is insane.
Yeah, he was supposed to like to go to summer school. They're like, well, if you missed a month, you got to finish it up in summer school. But then they never sent him the letter, so he just got off a month of school for free and didn't have to make it.
Damn.
Sticking it to the man. One letter at a time.
Yeah. Now, I mean, in your guys' writing process, something that I found interesting was you mentioning you often, or I should say sometimes, have demos that have 3 or 4 versions of the same song. How does that kind of go as far as like you guys dwindling down or chiseling at what will become the final version of that?
It's mainly just like me. I'll like go back through and like say me and Dave jamming a couple of times, and then I'll listen to like the videos that we did together and be like, it'll be more beneficial if we like change this part or like change this up a little bit. Maybe something sounds a little too similar to something else. So it's mainly just me like combing through ideas and being, I like this version better than this version, or like, let's take this riff from this version and put it in this version. That'll be the final piece.
Do you have anything? I was trying to comb through just because I found that interesting. Do you have anything where you guys have released like separate versions of tracks on what may it be like a remix or something like that?
I'm trying to think. Like, I know there's like, so like there's like a 7-inch version of Vessel Deserted compared to like the Rudiments version is like played a little bit faster, or it's like mainly it's like when we record something like to like actual record in the studio, I'm like, that's the final version. Like, I never like, I like kind of don't like that when bands like do that, when there's like 3 versions of the same song kind of thing. It's me, I'm like, if it's on record, then that's it, it's permanent. If it sucks to me later, that's like too bad, but that's just like, it's there for history.
Okay. All right. I was going to mention, because it kind of made me think of, I don't know if you're familiar with East Coast band on
Yeah,
Broken Wings, and they always had that like one or two songs that they like recorded on everything that they did, and it was slightly different, but there was still like kind of like a, like a cool difference. So, but it sounds like you're not a fan of that.
like
One and done. Put that out
yeah,
there.
if like anything changes, it's mainly just like say like the speed or like the vocal pattern or something. Never like I never like add or take away a part kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
So kind of in that same vein, like something I've always appreciated about Full of Hell is just obvious. Like, there's not a genre that you guys are just like, this is our genre, this is what we do, and it's all we'll do. But for me, like when I listen throughout your catalog, it's like, to me, the not a challenge, so to speak, but just like when you're writing, when do you like, how do you sift out like, yeah, that's not us, or that's not Full of Hell, or like that, that's cool, but it's not something I'd want to use for this or for us, like, because it seems like you guys find ways to fit like anything in it, it still ends up sounding like you. So, what does that look like?
Like it's less of that now than when I was younger. I was more like self-conscious about it when I was younger. Like I would write a riff and be like, that's too death metal sounding. Because it's like when we started out, it was more like hardcore influenced by like grind and power violence and stuff. And then as like we went on, as like the Amber Moat 7-inch came out, then we started getting more influenced by death metal. So I started to be less self-conscious of being like, well, this like sounds too much like this, or this sounds too much like this. Now it's more along the lines of being like, if I can twist it in a way to make it fit and make it creative, then I'm going to like try it. Like it might suck, it might not like it might not work, but I'm at least going to like try it and like show the guys, see what they think. So it's like, I mean, I have like hundreds and hundreds of riffs on my phone of just like stuff that will probably never come out, but it's just like it can be all different types of genres and stuff. But it's like now I'm not like very self-conscious about being like, oh, it's, it has to fit in this box. I'm like, if it sounds cool to me, hopefully it sounds cool to other people. If other people don't like it, well, someone out there is going to like it.
Word, that point.
Totally.
And just and sorry, go ahead. Oh,
Go ahead.
so like, I don't want to use hyperbole or anything, but like, I think it's safe to say your guys' releases are becoming prolific at this point. Like, it's like, holy cow, like, these guys are just constantly churning out material. There's nothing stagnant about it. So you must write like nonstop. I'm guessing like it's a daily, like it's a regular thing you're writing.
Yeah, it's mainly like it's like there will be like lulls. Obviously, I think for any like musician, there's just like lull periods where like I don't feel like playing guitar. I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like doing that. But it's just like I said, I don't want to learn other people's songs. So it's like if I'm like I'm just going to play guitar today, I'm going to try to come up with a song. I'm going to try to come up with a riff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find something interesting, I'll just record it and send it to the guys. So that's how we're like kind of like you said, more prolific or in a sense or whatever. It's like I'm always just like I said, I sit down with a guitar and it might not be my goal to write something, but I like will try to be like, all right, I'm going to come up, and it might be like months at a time where I'm just like, this sucks. Or in a week I can be like, all right, here's 5 songs. So it's just it just depends on like the mood, how annoying work was that day. Fuck, I need to write music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of touching on like the difference in, as far as like the, not even to say subgenre, but just the sound of the music is kind of singles. And for the Gardens of Burning apparition, is it apparitions? I didn't want to fuck that up. When you guys released Reeking Tunnels, that was one of those moments where I was just like, God damn, like these dudes, this is like not even so much like a 90s like rock song as it is just as much, like aggression, like something like that comes out. I'm just like, the newer split with Nothing, there's moments on that where I'm just like, fuck, man. So that's one thing I always love out of seeing something new that's coming out from you guys is like that boundary of like, nah, we're not worrying about that. We're just gonna have a good time and have something that fits, and it does too. I mean, like right after that, having a blisteringly fast track after Reeking Tunnels, having noise tracks on there, like, dude, absolute thumbs up.
Thanks.
We got so I mean, I guess we were touching on that split with Nothing, and like my brain, I'm just trying to think of like, I'm talking to a couple of buddies that are in my band, let's just say, and then we're talking to 4 other people that are completely, you know, out of our box, out of our realm. How does this all come about when you guys are writing When No Bird Sang, and how are you wrapping your minds around going back and forth and trying to get a collection of music together with a whole other band?
So like, it starts out like during COVID, we did that live stream with Nothing.
Yeah.
And
okay.
It was a kind of a situation of just being like, wouldn't it be cool if we like did something together? And like, so initially that year that Roadburn got canceled, we were supposed to do a collaboration set with Lingua Ignota. So
okay.
when Roadburn got rescheduled, our like time frames didn't match up, but they were like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a collaboration set with Nothing? And we're like, okay. And instead of just being like, oh, let's just get up there and do like a noise jam, we were like, let's actually try to like write a set together. So Nikki and Doyle came down to Ocean City for like about a week, and we just jammed and demoed like all of the songs except for 2 on the record in one weekend. Like I think like 4 days or something like that. And then we sat on those like 4 songs for I think about like a year and a half, until we were finally like, all right, let's just actually book some studio time and go in there, like figure out these songs. And then like we just came up with a couple other songs. But the first time we ever performed it, it was in front of like 3,000 to 4,000 people. So and
let's not fuck this up.
We wrote it, demoed it, had it ready like to go kind of thing, and then weren't able to practice it for about like 6 to 8 months, and then practiced for like 2 hours before we went on stage and then performed it.
Holy shit, man. That was insane. Was this front to back then when you guys played that? I'm trying to remember.
It was 4 songs, except I'm very bad at song titles, but there's 2 songs on the record that we just came up with in the studio. Like we just came up on the spot. So.
Damn. What, I mean, were you guys, I'm sorry if I missed this, but were you sending back and forth riffs, or was that like kind of the thing, or was this just like in room you guys had tossed this all together?
In room we wrote about 45 minutes of music.
Fuck, man. That's insane.
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. Get rid of this shit. I'm done.
And it's a situation. The only collab, like the last time that we had actually written a collab before the studio was the Merzbow collaboration. The Primitive Man record was written on the spot in the studio. The 2 Body records were just like improvised in the studio, and then we like used the studio to build the record. But like, yeah, that was the first time that we actually had material for collaboration before we went into the studio.
That's awesome. So actually sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because I do remember hearing or reading an interview with you that you were mentioning that one of the Body collaborations was like an in studio, just in the moment type thing too. So
yeah, both.
God damn, dude, that's insane.
So the first Body collab, we had toured together playing separate sets for 6 weeks. Then we went to the studio and wrote the record in the studio. And then once we performed the first collab together on tour, the ending of that collab, we went into the studio and wrote the second one.
there's dudes and there's just dudes. Like, I don't know. That's impressive. I'm impressed. So with like that kind of connects to something I was wondering about, because you guys have been fortunate enough to like be in some around some awesome studios. You've worked with Kurt Ballou, you've worked with Will Putney, you worked with Andy Nelson, and I'm not. It's not that anyone else you worked with wasn't awesome. I'm just I'm not going to go on and on and on and list everybody, but sure, like. And I've also heard another interview where you said you guys have matured to kind of using the studio to write. You're using the studio and the tools you have. So, I mean, I guess this is going to be a broad question, but just all of this experience and all these studios working with these different producers, different studios, like what has your takeaways been? Like, what have you learned? Like, how has it shaped you and maybe your approach and the band as a whole?
So, like, I mean, I was talking about this the other day because the band I used to be in, the bass player owns a studio that a ton of Full of Hell records have been recorded at. And I was talking to him the other day because, like, we used to go in there, and Roots of Earth was recorded in 2 days. The whole record was recorded in 2 days. And I think Rudiments was recorded in 3 days. But now it's gotten to the point where I'm like, why do we need to, like, rush ourselves and make us like I know it was like back then we were younger and it was like a money situation, and it's like now we're fortunate enough to like work with labels that like benefit us to be able to stay in the studio longer. But it's now gotten to the point where it's like we still can record. I mean, Garden, I think we were in the studio for 10 days, but all the music was done within 5, I think, and then we just used the rest of the time to like actually sit and listen to it and be like, let's add some stuff, let's take away some stuff. So now it's like, that's what I was saying before, being like using the studio almost as an instrument. It's like we can sit there and be like, maybe on other records we weren't able to like get our ideas across, but now that we've like have so much experience and able to have more time, we're able to use the studio being like, well, why don't we try this? Why don't we move this around? Why don't we add this? Why don't we like this and this and whatever? And that first became a thing when we did the Body Collab records, because like I said, those records were just like improvised in a 4-day period. And we were like, that was the first time seeing how those guys worked with machines with magnets, of almost using Seth, the producer, an extra band member, of being like, well, let me try this with the computer. Let me try this with like this pedal. Let me try this with like this plugin or this like interface or whatever. So it's like all these records have compounded to make it way easier for us to like come up with stuff, like use, like I said, use the studio as like a tool, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. That's
I
in
mean,
Baltimore, right?
What?
That studio's in Baltimore.
What?
Studio's in Baltimore.
Kevin's studio, the guy from iFlies, his is in Baltimore. Machines with Magnets is up in Providence.
Oh, that's in Providence. I thought that was in Baltimore too.
Yeah,
my bad.
Developing Nation, where we record, like that's where we've done like most of our 7 inches and most of the like I think we did like 4 LPs up there with Kevin. Most of the collaboration stuff has been at other studios.
Okay.
Do you find working in the studio, is that like a comfort situation to you? Does that feel like second home, or is that something where you're like, I fucking hate this and just want this to get done?
Like it used to be that way because it was like pressure of being like I said, being younger and being like, fuck, we gotta get this done or it's gonna come out of our pockets to be like, you know, play like a bunch of fucking like mid 20-year-old kids being like, fuck, we owe this guy an extra $1,000. We need to get this done. Now it's a situation of just like, I love going there, like touring's fun, but I like sitting there and actually being creative and being able to bring like a bunch of different guitars, a bunch of different pedals, like trying out stuff that maybe I didn't think of while we were practicing.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I mean, when I got to talk to Dave, I think it was like a couple of years ago, he was mentioning something along the lines of recording 3 or 4 days and having it so fast. And I'm just like, I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind, like, man, like, would Full of Hell be more of just a straight up rock and roll kind of prog band, and they get in the studio and Dave just becomes Animal and just has everything bumped way up past what needs to be for BPMs? Or the dude is just like insanely
Yeah.
fast, and the whole band. I mean, just like, and then not to mention, you know, doing the technical shit that you're doing, and in 3 days, like, that's pretty fucking wild. I mean, records with 15 songs on them, even a 10-song record, like, only a couple days like that is insane.
Yeah. And like my big takeaway as well was because like I read an interview with like Neurosis where they like record with Steve Albini, and Steve Albini says that they're like the most efficient band he works with, because it's like a same situation where it's like they don't have the like the tools to have to spend like an extra couple $1,000s a day. So they come into the studio being like, we want to be a well-oiled machine, know the songs, have it practiced, have our ideas laid out. So it's not a thing where we're just going to the studio and waste a day like twiddling our thumbs being like, fuck, we couldn't get this one part down. We couldn't get this, like, we don't know what to do next kind of thing. Like, so like I've always like looked at that interview and being like, that's the way we should be. So it's like we practice the record for months before we go in the studio, just so it's like we're not going in there and wasting time.
Yeah. I mean, an awesome advice for anybody that's even newer too, you know, like when you're kind of mentioning getting into the game and getting into wanting to record and having an idea, and you're going and spending your money and giving that to somebody else, you know, I mean, have your shit fucking ready. Like, go in and knock it out in one take and have it sound great and be like, yo,
yeah,
that's it.
100%. I've done some engineering on some sessions, and the sessions where bands are not prepared they're just not very fun. Like, yeah. Even like forget wasting time. Like, the whole vibe gets fucked up because no one wants to be there. The band's uncomfortable and stressed and feeling self-conscious. You're sitting there just like, wow, like you don't know your parts, you don't know your songs. Like, what were you thinking? And so, no, anybody out there that's starting a band or going to the studio, practice, and get that shit tight.
Just so you know, Spencer, he's talking about me. When I go in there and record drums with him, he's talking about me.
It's going like, why not get all the like meat and potatoes of the record done, so then you actually have extra time to go back, listen to it, tweak stuff, add stuff, and actually make it a fun experience instead of just being like stressed induced, being like, it has to be done in this time period, we got to get it done now.
Fuck yeah.
100%.
Absolutely.
So actually, one last thing on the studio thing, and then we can move on. But I'm like, something I was just making a connection to. I think it might have been an interview with Dylan. I can't remember, but I know something was said about kind of purposely almost looking at labels as residencies for a while there. Like, we want to just kind of try some things out and just have these different experiences. Is it safe to say that's kind of been the same approach to like studios?
Yeah. It's like there's certain places where it's like, Kevin, we know what we're going to get. We know how he's going to work. But there's also too, it's like, we decided to go with like Kurt Ballou for a couple records because we're like, hey, it's something different. Maybe he can bring some ideas to the table in case like we get stuck on something. He's a new guy we're working with, compared to say like I said, say a guy like Kevin, who's like used to how we work, used to how we write. He might bring something to the table that like we, you know, be like, yeah, okay. But then say we go to a studio for the first time, their first time working with us, first time hearing our music, they might be like, well, why don't you try this? Why don't you try this outside of the box? Why don't you try? So that's why we like changing up producers. Like, if we know we want a specific sound for something, we'll go to a guy that we know will give us that sound. If we want to try to like think outside of the box, we'll be like, well, let's try this guy for a change.
100%. Makes sense.
That's interesting. Jeremy, where, just in these moments, and I mean, out of appreciation, for being able to have this time, I think it's always kind of fun to reflect on something where like a band clicked for you. And is there a particular track that maybe you could mention as far as with Full of Hell that you heard and you're like, man, this band fucking rules?
100%. So that was something I've been trying to wrap my mind around. I was like thinking of a song or something to dig into, and I always liked Full of Hell. Like the moment I'd kind of heard in some of those earlier recordings, and like you said, the more grindy stuff, the more crusty, hardcore leaning stuff. It was always great. But for me, the song "Burning Myrrh" is the first song that I heard, and I was like, for me, I'm a real metal guy, so I heard that song, and it went from me being like they're cool to me being like, holy shit, I get it. Like I get what they've been doing and what they're working on doing. So for me, it's just wondering about like that. Do you have anything like thinking of that track, like memories or thinking about writing it or the process? And I know you guys, like I said, you have so many releases, so many things. But just anything, maybe playing it live or just anything connected to Burning Myrrh.
Burning Myrrh, it's like, I remember I was listening to a lot of like, so that's right off of like trumpeting where we started to be like more comfortable of adding like death metal influences. So I specifically remember writing Burning Myrrh, like listening to bands like Order from Chaos and like Angel Corpse and like not full on war metal, but like war metal adjacent type bands. So like, and I was like, that's where the influence of that song specifically came from. We used to play it live a bunch, but like once COVID hit, that's like one of our harder songs to play. And now it just like absolutely kills me to play it. It's just like so hard for me to play it now.
Like that very the intro riff is it, or is it just the whole song?
Just the whole song, because it's like, it sounds like it's pretty simple, but there's like with Weeping, I definitely was trying to add too many notes into every song. We're going to start playing on the Dying Fetus tour coming up. We're actually figuring out a set list, and we're actually bringing back a couple Weeping Choir songs, but it's like a bunch of them like we played at our Roadburn residency, and that was the only time we played a couple of those songs, because it was kind of thing where we wrote it, got it down, and then as soon as we left the studio, we're like, how the fuck are we going to play that live? And it's like, we practice and play it in a practice space, but like playing in a practice space is a lot different than playing on stage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Damn. Dude, that's so sick. I mean, and like Jeremy mentions this song, and I think for me, in different ways, something that always goes back to, for me personally, was the song Trumpeting Ecstasy. I'd always loved it. I'm a big horror movie guy. When Dylan and I talked, we had talked about horror movies, and there's just an overwhelming, like, just a creepiness. There's just an aura about like everything about this song. Nicole's vocals that are on it. I had gotten to go see the movie An Intrusion, which that song was actually featured in the movie, and like I'm in the middle of this like premiere crowd just fucking standing up clapping like, my boys, here we are, like just applauding. But what comes to mind with that song?
I forget how like we got in contact with Nicole. Like this was like right before she like blew up as well. I remember I think we were like, she messaged us on Tumblr or something, and we always like wanted to have a song with like female vocals, but it just like we could never like not find the right person. It was like we kind of just didn't know that many people that could do like that wasn't like growls or screams, just like actually singing. So it was just like we came up, that song as well was written in the studio with Kurt. Like it was kind of just like Dave came up with the electronics in the studio. Kurt, it was like Kurt's idea for like the bass sound, which is just like a bass tuned all the way down to the point the strings are almost hanging off. And then we came up with it, and we sent it to Nicole, and we're like, hey, do you want to be on this? And she was like, yeah, of course. And then like before that song even came out, like the record came out, like and like The Walking Dead and stuff like that.
Dude, that's insane. Did Dave actually do like live drums on that at all, or was that like all electronic with the vocals?
I think it was, he like went in there and recorded, like we sampled his drums, which we do a lot now. And he will like come up with like a drum riff, and then we'll just like loop, like put it through like almost like triggers on the computer, and then kind of just like loop it and build it and play it through like a MIDI kind of thing. And that's how we like came up with that. And then, like I said, Kurt was like, why don't we tune the bass like all the way down? So
fuck. Is that what you're hearing throughout the song, is the bass too, or is there like a guitar a beat that's kind of going over there? Because it's like an even like chug through the whole thing.
Yeah, it's just the bass.
Oh, even that is. Oh,
yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Just the bass.
Dude, what a cool song. God damn it. What a cool time. We're just sitting here and chatting it up, listening to fucking Full of Hell stories. Couple of rascals. Jesus. What about, okay, so we're talking, you know, some of the electronics, some of the noise aspect. How do you get introduced? Because Jeremy and I were talking earlier too, with Sword Dream, maybe even to start off, how does harsh noise get introduced to you? How does that become like something that, you know, gets tossed your way and you're like, holy shit, like, what is this?
So I forget who I was talking about this like recently as well. It all leans back to Sun, because on Black One, John Weiss is on a couple songs, and then John Weiss had just left Bastard Noise. And then from looking up John Weiss's name, I found Bastard Noise, and then that led me to like Man is the Bastard, and then finding that like influence Man is the Bastard, or Man is the Bastard influence. So then that leads me to find bands like the Endless Blockade and stuff like that. So like me being introduced to noise was actually like being influenced by hardcore bands that were like influenced by noise. But at the same time too, it all leads back to like Sun, because they had also done records with Merzbow, and somehow at one of my local record stores, when they were finally going out of business, I was looking through the bins, and they had a pretty rare, I still have it, a pretty rare double Merzbow CD that I got for like $10 that now goes for like a couple $100. And then that was like my first introduction to noise. So it all leads back to like looking up the liner notes of like Sun Records.
Sick.
Real quick, not to interrupt, but we're about to hour point, so I think we need to tap out and tap back in just briefly.
I keep forgetting about these rascals at Instagram. They cut it off at an hour. So are you good if we take a pause really quick and we save this, and then we start back just to kind of go from there?
Yeah.
Sick. All right. Okay, cool. So we were talking Sword Dream. That CD, that double CD, that's something that you held on to then?
Yeah. Most of my CDs, like, I collect vinyl, really. I just have always been a CD guy.
Oh, okay, dude. I can appreciate that. You know, nowadays you come across anybody and it's like, you don't have vinyl. Fuck you. Hey, I don't know, man. I'm gonna buy a fucking T-shirt. Like, what do you mean?
I mean,
who are you hanging out with, Eric? You're really mean. Jesus.
We'll get into it later.
Like most cars don't have fucking CD players anymore, and that's how I actually was like able to discover new music, is just like buying CDs and driving around and listening to them now. Now most cars don't have CD players, so I'm just like, I have a whole collection of stuff that's just like I've not even had a chance to listen to yet, because it's like I'd have to listen to it in my house and just like deal with my dogs like blasting a noise CD.
I mean, but like, have you ever looked into grabbing a Sony Walkman in 2024? Is that still a thing at all?
They make those. They make those like for cars to like connect to Bluetooth, but they're just like pieces of shit. And like I have some CDs that I'm just like, I'm afraid to take them in the car because they're actually like, I got them in Japan and, you know, they're hard to
Oh,
find. And
oh
like,
man.
you go to Japan and they're like $20, but then you come back here and they're like 120. So it's like,
Right.
you know, I try to be like very particular and careful with my CDs, and like most of the CD like portable ones that you make for cars now, like are like do not hold up at all.
Yeah. Did you have one in your youth that was just like, you know, you could drop that bitch and it wasn't skipping? Like, did you find that secret
Yeah,
sauce?
yeah. I mean, I had, I mean, I'm sure you remember like the one Sony Walkman where it was like the mascot was like the big-headed blue alien that was like
Yeah.
you could like fall down and smash the CD player and it would the thing with it. So I was like, that was like I got one of those for Christmas, and it's still at my parents' house and like worked up until like a couple years ago.
Oh man, dude. I never had that. I don't know what fucking CD. I remember the one that you're talking about, and maybe I should have just scrounged up, you know, maybe some allowance or raked some yards and actually bought that bastard because, man, I had so much frustration with CDs when I was coming up, but not as much as tapes. I would say I would absolutely stand with CDs more than cassettes. For some reason, man, cassettes were always fucking tearing up on me. I'm just like, this sucks.
Yeah.
So on the subject of noise, so I'm a person who I would say I struggle to get into noise, like purely noise, the genre of noise, right? So I love it when it's incorporated into music. I love it in spurts. You know, I've been to plenty of noise gigs and things like that, and I can appreciate it, but like maybe to someone like me who is maybe too dense to fully like submerge myself in it, like, what is it that maybe I'm missing, or what is it that for you it just really resonates with you?
I mean, now it's like I will mainly listen to noise compared to just like an actual band because it's like that's what people are always like, oh, do you check out new stuff? And it's like I'm around music so much that I'm like I don't want to hear music most of the time. So actually putting on like a more like ambient or noise thing is actually like kind of relaxing as just like a background sound almost. And it's like I go through like spurts and like of being like I really like noise or just being like this is kind of like getting on my nerves. I don't feel like listening to it, but I've always just been drawn back to it because I'm just like I'm interested in like the mythology around the bands. I'm interested in like what stuff they used. I'm interested in like just like the ethos of wanting to like make it themselves. So it's always just been like I've always been drawn back less by like what's actually on the physical media and just like everything surrounding the bands or everything surrounding the releases. So like it's just like the whole picture kind of thing. And that's always been like a big thing with me because even like I said, like a band like Man is the Bastard or something, it's like I like the whole package. Like I like the music. I what like what went on behind the scenes. I like the artwork. I like just like everything about it. And that's how I feel about noise as well.
So if I was gonna kind of cleanse my palate and go down this trek and go on this spirit journey, where should I start?
I mean, it just depends on like if you wanted something more like chill,
Yes,
if you wanted something
something more chill.
yeah, I mean, like I'm sure we're going to get talking into like about Sore Dream and stuff, but it's like I've always really been influenced by this band called like Yellow Swans, which is like it's just two guys, I forget where they're from, and it's like one guy does like tapes and the other does guitar and stuff, but it's like very just like not ambient, it's still noise, but it's like very soothing, but still like they can get like harsh and you know, I would start somewhere like that.
On it.
Do you feel like, and maybe I could be completely dog shit crazy here, but do you feel, did you find yourself really getting into noise after you would kind of taken on doing something like being involved with it? And I think where I kind of make this connectivity sometimes is I see like as far as like us as musicians and listening to something like death metal, where like someone who's only listened to Metallica before, they're like, what the fuck is this? This is so stupid. something that kind of clicked for me a long time ago with death metal was the actual musicality behind it and like what goes into producing it or making it. Like, was that something that ever like clicked for you, or was it right away like hearing it and you were drawn right from there?
I think because like what we said in the other part, like I discovered noise from older bands that had incorporated noise. So it's like I like I said, like
Yeah, duh. Okay, right.
Man is the Bastard or Gasp or Endless Blockade, bands like that that had like still music structure but had elements of like noise in the background and stuff. That's when I first heard that. I can like pinpoint exactly. There's a record from Insect Warfare. I forget the name of it, but it's like the last record they did where it's like it just says their name and then it has a bunch of like stripes on the front of it. That was the first record where it was just like drums, guitar, vocals, and noise. And that's where I was like, we need to start incorporating noise into Full of Hell. That was the record where I was just like, this is a record that like truly influenced me of being like, we need to change our sound to do something more along the lines of this.
Oh shit. Okay. Damn. What was that band called again? I wanted to write that down really quick.
Insect Warfare.
It's their 2009 release.
Yes.
Self-titled.
And then on the back of it, instead of having song titles, it had other bands that influenced that record. So then I went through and looked all of those bands and stuff like that. And it was like, it's more considered like noisecore than just like straight up like death industrial or harsh noise or power electronics. But it still opened the gateway for me to discover other like stuff like that. Besides like Sun and stuff. Initially led me to find bands, like I said, like Bastard Noise and Man is the Bastard.
Man. Now, you're nobody, like foreign to collaborating. And this latest Sore Dream record was also a collaboration as well. How did that whole connection end up happening for you guys?
So the guy, Hisham, who plays on that record, he used to be in a band called Black Dice, which started out as like a more type band, but then eventually morphed into like it's hard to describe that era of like a noise band because it's like it came out around the same time as like a band like Animal Collective and stuff like you think of Animal Collective as like an indie rock band or like noise pop band, but they actually started out as just like a noise band. So he was in this band called Black Dice, and I'm like really a big fan of their one of their earlier records when they went from screamo to more like electronics and noise. And he also used to play drums in this band called the Boredoms, which is like a classic Japanese band who like toured with Nirvana and stuff. And the singer of Boredoms he had a noise project called Hana Tarash, which they were infamous because he drove a bulldozer through a venue. So we found out that he was like a big fan of Full of Hell, and he came to a couple of our shows, and we just started talking to him. So me and Dylan were like, "Hey, we have this other project," and we were like, "Would you like to do a collaboration with it?" And it took a while just because of like COVID and just like trying to figure out stuff. But he ended up sending over a bunch of drum tracks, and I went up to Machines with Magnets, and Dylan, this was around the time that Dylan was having a kid, so it was just me and the producer just taking these drum parts and coming up with an entire record, and then Dylan sending his vocals over. But he was also too, Hisham was the original singer for Lightning Bolt as well.
Damn, no kidding. I mean, so like a lot of kind of wraparounds in general, and then to be working with them too, like fuck.
Yeah,
that's so sick.
There's like,
well, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's like a lot of bands. Like it's awesome to like meet people in bands that like I looked up to, like starting my musical journey, and then being like them reaching out and being like, we should work together, and it's like, of course.
Yeah, no shit. I mean, when you're setting up for something like that, so like, let's just say, for instance, I mean, he sends over, he's got these drum tracks, and he sends these over, and you kind of, you know, go on with the initial inspiration from hearing these. What are like tools? What are things that you're kind of collecting as far as to, you know, to make this like instrument in front of you to start, you know, working on making what ends up, you know, this record?
I mean, with Sword Dream, there's like, we have it, so it's like, we're influenced by like, you know, noise band. Like me and Dylan started the project because we had been talking about doing just a noise centered project for years and years and years. So we were like, let's start this band, but like, let's have even less boundaries than Full of Hell. Like every release we'll just do something kind of different. So when he sent over the drum stuff, it was kind of hard just because it was like me and the producer in the studio, but it was just like me and a guitar, him with the drum tracks, and we're like, well, let's just try this. Maybe it'll sound cool. He would come up like, write a drum part from these samples we had, and then I'd be like, all right, and then I would just like improvise some guitar on it. So it was just like, yeah, it's hard to describe a record like that because there was like, it was so free and like we could do whatever we want. That was just like, it was kind of just being like, all right, fuck it, I'll just come up with this guitar part over this drum part. Like, it would sound cool if the drums did this and then we cut it out, or it would sound cool if we ran the drums through like this effect. And, you know, there was no set of being like, it needs to sound like this. It was more of just like, let's just have fun and just see what comes out.
I mean, was there a moment of like not having a ceiling, so to speak? Did that become overwhelming at all, where you're like, fuck, I need to sit down with this for a second?
I feel like the first day, because it's like, all right, how are we going to start kind of thing? We have all this.
Yeah.
I'm the actual only band member in the studio. Like, what are we going to do? And then it's just like, you know, so once you get past that first hump of like the first idea, then you're like, all right, this would sound cool if we did this. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Oh man. You know, like, I mean, this record in particular, like, obviously it's sick with, you know, with the different collaboration, and as far as like a full record, this was the first time for Sword Dream, right? You guys hadn't had anything like this as far as for like a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we had, so we've had like a couple tape releases and a couple like LPs, but I think the LPs are more like shorter. It's just like there's less songs, but it's like adds up to more, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like only 4 or 5 songs on the record, but it's like half an hour long.
Right.
Yeah, this was like the sign of it just being like, all right, let's just try to actually make a cohesive record of just like random ideas. You know, it's like, it, like I said, it's very hard to describe the process because it was just like, yeah, let's just do whatever we want.
Dude, it rips, man. You know, I think one last thing kind of to wrap with this, and with this, you know, with this latest release, you know, in particular, was that microorganic genocide. Anything come to mind as far as, you know, within that track, very, you know, kind of like industrial looming guitar part that goes along with it? Anything come to mind as far as working on that song in particular?
I mean, not really. You know, like it was legitimately, we would just put the songs together and then I'd be like, all right, I haven't used this effects pedal on a track yet. Let's try to run it through this or this or this. So it's just like, you know, everything was just being like, besides the drums being built, all the guitar stuff was pretty much improvised on the spot. So,
yeah. Dude, that rips, man. I mean, and honestly, like, maybe from an answering standpoint, or from like, it might seem like it's, you know, like a adult answer, but I appreciate that as well too. Like, I dig that it's like not over like thought, or there was some huge thing, like it just kind of, you guys were in there doing your thing and it ended up being like something as fucking badass is what it ended up being. The record in particular too. I guess, and from there, maybe this is something a little bit more recent that was introduced to me, being Reaper's Gong. Dude, yeah. This rips, man. Absolutely, like, fucking love this. I would love to see this live. I love the whole feel, even like a doomy, kind of feel with like the vocals over some of just the sludginess. How does this act, come about?
So it initially, I just like, it was me and another group of guys started jamming. We were like, let's try. I was like, I really want to kind of do a band like Dinosaur Jr. And we ended up putting up a flyer and found this like local kid who's not in Reaper's Gong anymore. But me and him started jamming with this other group of guys, and just like, it wasn't flowing, like it just wasn't melding. So I was like, I've always like, I had just left iFlies, or like right before iFlies. Like iFlies was definitely more influenced by like AmRep type bands like Helmet, Unsane, stuff like that. But I always liked more just like straightforward, like nasty noise rock stuff, which I tried to bring to iFlies, but it wouldn't meld all the time. So like, I was like, we should start a band like I like stuff like Flipper and Rectal Hygienics and Brain Bomb and Upside Down Cross. And like I said, I had known Gabe just from the neighborhood, like, seeing him around, and I knew he played bass. I knew he was good at guitar. So like Gabe and Zoe's the singer of Reaper's Gong. They were in a band called, and it was just like a super like kind of like, classic stoner type band. But they also too were HR's backing band from the Bad Brains. They will play.
Oh, shit, really?
Yeah, they his reggae band. They were his backing reggae.
6 Degrees of Full of Hell, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
So yeah,
Jesus.
we actually had Full of Hell practice on Saturday, and Gabe was like, hey, my dad's making me go to HR's birthday party. Can we do band practice? So yeah, but so I was just like, I told the drummer, I was like, we should like kind of be like, it's more fun to do these like noise rock songs. And then we ended up hitting up Gabe. Dirt Woman had broken up, but he was like, I think Zoe could actually like fit with these songs, even though like they're more noisy. Like I think her vocals could be like a good dynamic with it. So that's how like Reaper's Gong got started. And it was like, we started it during COVID. So it was just like, we had plenty of time to just like write songs. So that's how we like already have like 3 tapes out.
Dude, so sick, man. I couldn't say enough. I think, I mean, Jeremy, we were kind of on the same wavelength talking, obviously with Full of Hell, but then Reaper's Gong comes up and both of us are like, this is the fucking bee's knees, dude.
Thanks.
This rules.
I mean, we want to tour more. It's just like I said, we're in a weird position where it's like, we're not totally a hardcore band. We're not totally a noise rock band. So it's like kind of hard to like skirt those lines. Like so far we've just played, like we play whatever show will get offered to us kind of thing. Like we've played with like, like a grind band like Suppression, but then we just did iFlies like a couple days of their record release show, so like we'll basically play with whoever. And we're actually in I think 2 weeks going to record 4 more songs.
Oh, dude, I'm telling you, man, when I'm in the gym and those 5 songs are playing, they go by pretty quick, and I'm just like, I'm listening. I'm on time 47 now of listening to collectively these 6 tracks. That's awesome. I can't wait. Sorry to cut you off, buddy.
We have 4 songs ready to record, and then we're currently writing an LP as well.
Fuck, dude.
So is Reaper's Gong kind of like is it a lot like you're driving that writing? Is that or is that a little different than what you were describing with Full of Hell? Or
I try to make it a little different, just so it's not a situation where it's like I come up with something and it sounds too similar to Full of Hell, or vice versa. Like, of course, there's going to be some like little bit of crossover because I'm coming up with the stuff, but I try to make that a more collaborative recording process compared to like Full Hell, where I bring them riffs. I'll be like, I'll go to practice. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, I got a couple guitar riffs. Let's try to like jam it out. Or I'll be like, okay, we ran through our set list. Let's sit down and try to write a song today. So, and it's like, usually I'll come up with a riff and then I'll come up with a riff on the spot, or Gabe will come up with like a bass line, and then we'll build the song either around the bass line or the guitar riff.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, I tried, like, of course there's going to be overlap because it's like what what I'm influenced by kind of thing, like kind of overlaps, but like I still, like with iFlies, I came with a couple riffs, but for the most part, like I let them write the songs. So it was like, oh, you can differentiate like the bands and who's coming up with what kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Now with something like this, and maybe this could be something, you know, that is way too ironic, but, you know, I think something that has always been sick is noticing, because I know for like a long time, you played like BC Rich, right? With in Full of Hell?
Yeah.
Or you had something pretty like out there wild, very metal-like. And
Warlock.
then you get into the Fenders, and I started seeing, yeah, the Warlocks. Okay. And then you get into like the Fenders. So when you're doing something like this, it's a little bit more laid back. Like, is this where you're busting out the flying V's, like the full-on metal guitars, or what's your setup for something like Reaper's Gong?
So, going back to like the BC Riches, just like to touch on that, I started playing BC Riches, like, I'm pretty sure like us, like Full Hell and Blood Incantation started playing them around the same time, and they were like $100. You could get them for cheap as shit. Nobody wanted them. Everybody, I remember the first couple tours I did with them, people would make fun of me. They're like, why are you playing that? And then out of nowhere, the ones that are just like pieces of shit go for $2,000 on Reverb now. And it's like, I got that. The most I ever paid for a BC Rich was $400 ever. And now it's like quadruple the price. And it's like, I would never play that. Like, they would constantly fall apart. You constantly get beat up, constantly neck warping, like issues. So we were playing for ESP a little bit, but that was the same situation where I was just like, they just would not, you know, they couldn't let every tour. I was just like, I had to go get a major repair, major setup. Then we finally got in touch with Fender, and it's just, I've been like, I mean, I've always loved Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic Youth. So I'm like, always I early on in Full of Hell, I had a Jazzmaster, got beat up, and I ended up selling it. So we just went back to that. But like, long story short, with Reaper's Gong, I tried to play more like noisy sounding guitars. And I also too, I used to play aluminum guitars in Full of Hell a lot. When our van got stolen in 2019, I was touring with an aluminum guitar. And after COVID happened, like, I got a replacement for that aluminum that was stolen, but from not being on the road so much, it's like I have a very hard time playing the Full of Hell stuff on like the weight of an aluminum guitar. It just like rubbing on my neck. It's like I can't play fast anymore with those. So I use I'll use like a Fender Jaguar and Reaper's Gong because it's like really thin or wiry sounding, or I'll use an aluminum guitar and Reaper's Gong because it's like less riffs, less, you know, less dexterity. It's more just like power chords and stuff like that. So it's like way easier to play a guitar like that in music like Reaper's Gong.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a complete dickhead here, but like you're saying like the metal guitar. What the fuck?
BC Rich, brother.
No, goddamn it, the actual.
Like, the aluminum.
The aluminum. So like I'm thinking of like a resonator or some shit. Like what the hell is an aluminum guitar?
Just the neck.
It's hold on. I'm in my music room.
Fuck yes. Let's just show it off, dude. Come on.
Ooh, a little show and tell.
What do we?
Good question. That was the question of the night. We get a little show and tell.
There you go. See? Being a dickhead pays off.
I hope it's the Gibson rip. I hope it's a Gibson rip.
I didn't know that there was a thing.
I was looking into this. He had two of them. I think it was from the dude in Baltimore, right? He builds these.
Yeah, the guy Kevin that records us.
Kevin,
that's in iFlies. So it's like aluminum.
Oh shit! Okay, yeah.
From the headstock to the bridge is all one piece, and then you just slide the body onto the neck. So this is one I have that was like my replacement for the stolen one. The other one is like out in our practice spot right now, so I can't grab the other one, which is like the one I mainly use in Reaper's Gong. But this is like one of my main recording guitars for Full of Hell now, just because I can't play it live.
Fuck.
But it's way like what I would say compared to like a full wood guitar is it's just like way clean. Everything's way cleaner sounding, not clean as like a clean amp, but just like every note that you pick actually like stands out more compared
to
the
definition.
Yeah, everything like way cleaner definition, way cleaner just yeah.
So the way it resonates.
Yeah, resonates
less like
way more. And everybody says it's like, oh, they like go out of tune because like the weather and stuff like that. Like you got to let it acclimate to the room. And it's like I've never had an issue with that.
Yeah,
so.
It's aluminum. Like what? I mean, what is? Because there's not like a bowing or anything, is it? Or a bowing?
Well, I think because the expanding of it. I think
yeah.
Okay.
If it's in the cold like trailer, then you bring it into like the lights of the stage. It'll like go out of tune really easy, but like I've actually never ran into that.
Shit.
Well, a wood guitar would do the same. I mean, if you bring a wood guitar right inside and you try to play it, it might be a little flat, like sharp and flat. My buddy Addison, he's kind of a mad scientist guy, and he's built a guitar with aluminum neck, but he actually does a thing where he throws a bass pickup in under the top string, kicked it sideways, and then has the two outputs out.
Okay.
So then he'll like run like a looper and like run like a bass line on the looper, and then he can sit there and he'll play a bass line, but he can play guitar. It's just through his bass. He runs a sub octave and one guitar. He has aluminum neck, but yeah, it's a wild. He has a pretty kick ass setup.
Yeah, cool.
Man, it sounds absolutely sick. I have no idea what the fuck you just said. But,
yeah.
I mean, for guitar players, this is what's beautiful here, though, is when we get to talk to guitarists, like I love having that aspect of that because like when we have on drummers, Jeremy kind of has this thing too, and it's like, no, you don't understand. Like there's a thing with sticks, and you have to, kind of certain thing with tone. So we have these conversations with guitar too, and like I love it. I think it's so sick. I've never been able to like play, but it's just kind of one of those things where you set up for shows and somebody's saying like, "Fuck, my tubes are such and such and that," and it's like, I don't. Can you plug it in and it works, or what's going on here?
So on the question of gear, I think we're kind of starting to wrap up here a little bit, but on the topic of gear, I know you're really big on delays and reverbs. I know I've heard you say that before. Like that's kind of essential, kind of to what you're doing and having for your sound. What like pedals or delays and reverbs are you like? I've got to have that. Like I need to have that. If we play a show out of the States, I need to have these pedals. Everything else I can work with, but I need these.
Definitely, like the only delay that I really like, it has to be with me like at all times is a Dispatch Master by Earthquaker.
Okay.
It's like a super simple delay and reverb, like nothing crazy sounding, nothing that special, but it's like if I like say every other pedal broke and I still had to do like noise between songs, like I'm not going to get down on the ground and like twist the like knobs to do like what a lot of people do with delays to make noise, but I can still like implement that pedal enough to like make a bunch of different sounds with it, use it for like parts in songs just to like give it a little bit of movement, but it's like not too much that it's going to like fuck up the way the song sounds. It's like I just like that pedal is just like always stuck with me because it's like a lot of delays like they get like too crazy or like you can't get them in like perfect time with like what you need to do. Like this one is just like the smoothest one I've ever owned, like just the best sounding. Like that's like my go-to pedal. If like all else fails, like if I have that, like we're good.
Gotcha.
Damn.
And are you still using orange TH100s for like your main head?
I try to, but it's like now they're getting hard to find. So it's like I'm kind of like, I had the one stolen when our van got stolen. I have a backup, and I blew up an amp when we did the Blood Incantation tour, and they actually happened to have one down the street for like $1,000. Like the store actually had two of them, so I got one, and Ethan from Primitive Man got one as well. But they were like $1,000 a piece, which is like pretty good deal for those. And
there's one on Reverb.
I mean, it's
right now for $1,200. Just so you know.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it.
I don't need any more amps right now. So a bunch of Mad amps. I got a bunch of orange amps. I have like a Fender Twin here now too. So it's like I have everything I need for like what I need to take to the studio or what I need to take on tour. But if they weren't so, like I said, like they will pop up for cheap, but they're getting more sparse. So for the most part, like when we just did that tour with End, I brought my like rocker verb, which it's like if that got broken or stolen, I could just go to like maybe a decent Guitar Center, because most Guitar Centers suck now, and find one on the shelf compared to like
Gotcha.
like a Mad amp or like one of the discontinued oranges.
So how would a rocker verb compare to a TH100? Would you say, like sound wise?
It's not. Rocker verb is like definitely, you can get it to be like a tight metal amp, but it is still like a way more like just rock sounding amp. Whereas like the TH100, you can definitely tell was just like made for metal, like super tight, but then like a lot of lows when you hit like heavier strings and stuff, like heavier chords.
Gotcha. So kind of like a dual dark, kind of a little more in the dual dark range.
I think one of the channels on the dual dark is one of the channels on the TH100, but like dual darks I've never been able to like dial in. They've always been like kind of like too burpy sounding to me. Like I can't smooth. And now those go for like $4,000 on Reverb. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
These bastards, it goes for swiping up all the records and then reselling those. You want to get the amps. What's next? You fuckers.
I mean, I've been trying to like I have a certain jazz master I want. Like I've been able to find most of them. Like there's two from the guys in Sonic. I have the one I actually found for a decent price, but then the other one that I've been looking for years, one finally popped up on Reverb for the first time in like a year, and the guy wants $4,100 for it, and the guitar's only 10 years old.
Times are tough right now. If you're trying to buy used gear, it's been like fruitless the past 2 years. So I think they're starting to come down.
That's what also too, it's like I wanted Mad amps for years. I like ever since high school, I wanted a green Mad amp. And people always were selling them for like $3,500, $4,000. If you actually just go on the website and order one directly from them, they're only like $1,700.
But you said the wait, right? You have to wait. So it's like that urgency. If you can wait, then you can get a better deal on it.
The wait is only 2 months.
Yeah.
It's not even that long,
2024, that's like forever for some people. So I think that's why the gear is so much, because people are, whatever, I'll pay $4,000. I'm not waiting 2 months.
Yeah, which me and my wife talk about, because we're both like, we're the same age, like 34, 35, and we just remember ordering stuff as kids and being like, all right, it's been 6 months. Hopefully it shows up soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully I get it by the time I'm 34 or 35.
Yeah.
It'll be here someday. I know I've got it coming. So kind of getting to the end here. So you've mentioned you got a tour coming up with Dying Fetus. And so as we've said already, like obviously Full of Hell kind of transcend genres and all that. But, and so obviously you've been on tours that are kind of like a black metal tour with 1349. You've been on, these straight up hardcore type of tours. You've been with, you name it. So when you're going out with like this death metal package, and it's pretty much, I think 200 stab wounds are on it, right? Like this is like a death metal package. And so like when you're gearing up for that, like, is there, like, you're gonna, like, this is gonna be this type of vibe, or just thoughts you have, or like this is gonna be different from these other tours for this reason? I'm just wondering what you're like expecting or what your thoughts are.
I mean, Dying Fetus has actually been asking us to go on tour for like a couple years now, and it's just like never lined up. Like, I mean, they're from Baltimore, but we've like ended up playing fests with them and hanging out backstage with them in like Romania and stuff like that. Like, opposite sides of the world. But they've asked us, and it's just like, it's never worked out. And it finally, we're like, all right, we have time. Like, let's try to make this work. So like, usually like coming up with like a set list for like this tour, we might lean a little more, like I said, we're going to do some more songs off of Weeping, but we're definitely not going to be like, all right, we got to do a complete death metal set list. We're like, no, we'll add a little more death metal songs, sounding songs to the list. But like, that's why we need to like show who we really are to like this new audience. We're not going to try to like change our vibe just because we're playing to like different people that might necessarily get it.
Yeah. I was more wondering, like, just from an audience perspective, I guess. So like, are you noticing, like, are these tours do they feel radically different? Like when you're like, just the energy from the crowd?
I mean, I'm not really like, obviously when we toured with like 1349, we were also like, that was in 2016 at this point.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the first times we ever done like a bigger, just straightforward metal tour. So we were kind of like, I think the audience might have not necessarily got it, especially to being like, why the fuck is this band on like tour with a Norwegian black metal band? But now at this point, like, I feel like Dying Fetus has enough crossover with people that listen to us, or people that saw us on that deathcore tour we did with like Fit for an Autopsy or Acacia Strain, which was also like, we were like putting ourselves out there because we're like, deathcore kids might fucking hate us because it's like, yeah, we'll have some breakdowns, but they're not like the breakdowns that these bands do. But it like, that's the thing that we're like, we might not translate to an audience, but like, let's just play hard as fuck and as crazy as fuck and as noisy as we want to, like, maybe these people will be like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. Like, I'm a fan now. And then check out other bands similar to us or other bands that influenced us, kind of thing. So it's like, I think this Dying Fetus tour is actually going to be like a perfect blend of people that are familiar with us, or we're going to have to play to like actually get some new fans. Cause that's like another goal. Like this year is like, we want to play at different types of tours and with two different types of people, because we have been a band for 15 years and it's like, we don't want to stagnate. So we have to play to new people, have to play to new crowds.
Well, I just have to say, first off, I'm sure you guys will nail it and you'll fucking kick ass, and it'll all work out, because proof's in the pudding, and that's what you've been doing your whole career. And to that point, what you just said, one of the last things I really care to say is just that word of not wanting to stagnate. And I've heard you say that a couple of times in some other interviews. And like, it honestly is, even, being a little older like I am and being around, and like, it's inspiring, because it's awesome to hear that. It's awesome. And to see that it's not just talk, that you legitimately are like, no, I'm going to keep writing, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to try different things, and we're going to go out of our comfort zones. So definitely, I have nothing but respect for what you're doing and what Full of Hell have done, and like, awesome. Like you guys are ripping. Good shit.
I cannot say anything in addition, other than I appreciate everything that you guys have been putting out. I would like to say, man, is there some new, material? Is there new? But you guys are fucking constantly putting out shit. I mean, to ask for anything at this point is very selfish and ridiculous. But you guys are doing a lot of shit. I can assume that maybe there's some writing every once in a while going on, but getting prepared for the tour, writing some set lists. You guys are still busy. I'm assuming, correct, right now?
Yeah, we're also sitting on a couple records, so just keep an eye out.
On, you said?
Yeah, we have a couple records that are.
Fuck, man.
So.
All right.
I'm done with the podcast. I just got to write all day now. Yeah. I just have to write. I'm a failure over here.
No, I mean, truly, Spencer, honestly, like, you guys are a fucking huge inspiration, both Jeremy and I, and many other, musicians as well. Him mentioning the whole stagnant thing, I think that's really important, for people to hear, and it not just being a thing where, something that I've loved too is that it's not to say that you guys, from your first demos up until the most recent music, it's not to say that by any means that you've expanded from a metalcore band to full-on death to full-on grind to a country act. There's still like a similarity into what your guys' sound is. And I feel like it's just an overall expansion to that kind of like first conversation of what it was that you wanted to do. And it just gets fucking better. And then, I mean, you just sit here and you're like, man, we got a couple of things we're sitting on. What the fuck does that mean? God damn it, man.
When you're good, you're good. I mean,
when you're good, you're good. No, dude,
haters gonna hate.
This has been absolutely awesome, honestly. We're really psyched. I have to look and see if there's like a Detroit show or something that you guys got going on, because if so, Jeremy and I are going to be there. We're going to have to be in the crowd pushing.
So the Detroit show is actually, it's the Dying Fetus tour meeting up with the Jesus Piece Sanguisugi Bog gag tour. It's
that's all that day.
Yeah.
That's a show.
Yeah.
Man,
that's a show.
Dude.
I'm there. I'm already.
Yeah,
I'm already there. So
we got to see what that date is, dude. Spencer, thank you so much, man. We could not appreciate. Thank you any more for the time, for the insight, the stories. Anybody that tuned in a little bit late, this will be on YouTube and Spotify to listen to, probably within the next couple months, and we'll promote it on here. So thank you very, very much once again, Spencer. This has been
thanks for having me. It's been fun. So
totally.
I'll hopefully see you guys in Detroit. So
fuck yeah, man.
Sure.